All right, so let's get started. And Ellen, you'll let more people in as they come along. So good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone, depending on where you are joining us from. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to join us. I think we're going to have a really good session today. And to start us off with a show of hands, how many of you would like to show up to work every day with excitement, enthusiasm, and positive energy? Am I seeing some hands? Yeah. Anybody not have their hand up? All right, so hands down. And how many of you would like to be as excited about your future as you were when you graduated from college? Hands up. Anybody remember? Anybody having trouble what it was like back when you graduated from college? All right. So thank you for that. All right, sorry, hold on one second. I'm just trying to fix my settings here. All right. So I am Kirsten Bunch. Some of you know me, some of you don't. I am the founder and head coach of Project Volo, a trailblazing experiential coaching program designed for people who want to shake up their lives and careers, figure out who they are at this point in their lives, and what they're capable of. My clients are typically mid-career professionals who are questioning what they want to do in the next 10 to 20 years of their careers. And one of the primary focuses with clients is helping them improve their mental fitness. And a mental fitness is the amount of time we spend in positive emotions instead of negative emotions like stress, anger, frustration, and anxiety. So with me today, I also have Ellen Petty, who is the Chief Administrative Goddess, and I do mean goddess of Project Volo, and she's going to provide any support we might need today. She's going to keep an eye on the chat, and if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or send Ellen a private message. So before we get started, there are a couple of things I'm going to request of you today. This is meant to be an experiential session, and so I invite you to participate fully for the next 60-ish minutes. One of the primary tenets of my work with clients is that they push themselves outside of their comfort zone into their growth zone. And I invite you to do that today. I'm inviting you to play full out, to share your stories, to participate in the conversation, both in the large group and in your breakout room. Which brings me to the fact that we will be using breakout rooms today. You will be in a breakout room with one other person. So if you're not going to be on camera or you're not ready to be in a breakout room to do this work, I'm going to actually ask you to drop off now and watch the recording afterwards. And if you're watching this as a recording, I want you to know we have special recording options that we've developed that will help you participate in the discussion, even though if you're watching the recording by yourself. Also, please know that the breakout rooms are not part of the recording. So the conversation you're having is between you and the other person, unless of course you choose to share your experience with the larger group. So we, like I said, this is an interactive experiential session. And so I'm using something called menti.com to help you participate in the session. So if you could take your phone, and you can also do this on your computer, but it might be easier on your phone, and go to menti.com. You can follow along and you can input your answers when the time comes, and I'll prompt you. You'll see when the time comes. So in case, I'm assuming you can read that number, but it's 5765843. And if you have any trouble with that, just put it in the chat and Ellen can try to help you out. So we are going to be talking about career trauma today. Please take care of yourself. This isn't the place to bring in unresolved trauma. If you haven't talked about it before, if it's still, if it's not resolved in your mind, then it's not something that you would want to bring in today. You can always bring in something else. You get to define trauma for yourself. We're not here to debate what trauma is or isn't. So please keep that in mind. It's up to you to define trauma for yourself. And we're also not here to blame you, blame others, or anything like that. This isn't about blame. So please keep those things in mind. All right, so let's get started. So today, like I said,
Kirsten, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Can we get the code again?
Yeah, of course.
You went off that. I'm going to put it into the chat, but we went off of that slide.
Sorry, there you go. You see at 5765843.
Okay, I put that into the chat for anyone who needs that.
Okay, great. All right, so let's get started. So we're going to talk about career trauma and how we can move beyond our struggles, disappointments, and failures in our careers and leverage those experiences to build strong, powerful careers that feel like they are in direct alignment with what you want out of your life and career. And we're going to do this first and foremost by diving into what it means to be a victim. So what is career trauma? Trauma is defined as a deeply distressing or disturbing experience. Some of you might know that the word trauma comes from the 17th century Greek, and literally means wound. And career trauma for you might look like being fired or being bullied at work, failing at a big project, having to fire people, feeling ostracized, or getting rejected time and time again for promotions or jobs. So using menti.com, I'd love for you to share what career trauma you have experienced in your life. So just go ahead and take the time and type in your answers. Okay, I'm not seeing anything come up. Are people putting in answers? Oh, there we go. Being ghosted by a supervisor, being fired. Ostracism at work. Failing at leading a team. Being fired. Job search rejection. Not assigned work. Rejected by a boss. Yeah. Yeah, all these sound traumatic. Okay, keep putting them in and I will come back to this slide to show us the full, all the answers in a moment. And Ellen, please remind me if I forget to do that. So I just wanted to tell you a little bit, a quick story about my story with career trauma and why this is something that I focus on in my work with clients. So I worked in international development. I traveled all over the world and started and managed poverty alleviation programs. I also did a lot of fundraising during my career. And I experienced intense poverty, or witness, I should say, not so much experience, witness intense poverty and suffering, violence. There were some situations where there was a threat to my safety. And I also experienced working for organizations that didn't have a lot of resources, didn't have a lot of support for my mental health. Went through a few situations where the environment in the organization was really tense. And so what happened to me because of all this, and this was over several years, was that I really lost my confidence and I really lost my way in my career. And I started playing really small and not going after the jobs that I really wanted, not going after the promotions. And then actually I had an idea to start my own business, and for many years didn't go after that because I didn't think that I could do that because of all these things that had happened to me. So that, that's my experience that's my career trauma. I mean, since then I've worked through that. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in the future. So my question for you is, how is career trauma impacting your career now? And again, you can go on menti.com and type in your answer. So somebody's blackballed. And by the way, all the answers in menti.com are anonymous. We don't know who's saying them. I just wouldn't put any names in there. Can't find employment, not clear in directions. I've lost direction. I'm not going after the jobs I want. Not sure what direction to go in. So a lot of direction, right? Feeling unqualified. Hesitant to be myself at work. I'm afraid of interviewing. When I can't motivate our team towards common goals, we don't reach them. What do I do next? I've overcome it thanks to coaching. So somebody looks like they've got some help from a coach. So that's great. So what I want to do now is look at career trauma through a mental fitness lens. And as I mentioned before, I think I mentioned it before, one of the key parts of my work with clients is around mental fitness. I do run a mental fitness boot camp, which is a 6-week program that uses technology, science, and small group coaching to improve people's mental fitness. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But let's talk about what mental fitness is. Well, what mental fitness is. Mental fitness is a measure of the strength of your positive mental muscles, which in mental fitness language we call the SAGE, versus your negative emotions or negative mental muscles, which is your saboteur. And just a little bit of the science behind this. This work is a synthesis of the latest breakthroughs in neuroscience, cognitive and positive psychology, and performance science. And the research and the mental fitness program is the basis of Shirzad Shamin's New York Times best-selling book, Positive Intelligence. And he's also a lecturer at Stanford. I highly recommend his book if you haven't read it. So one of the things that we look at in mental fitness is our saboteurs. And one of the saboteurs is the victim, which is why we're going to talk about the victim today. So I wanted to ask you, what is a victim? What does that mean to you? If you could type that into Menti, see your answers. Receiver of a bad situation. Failing powerless in a bad situation. Harmed by the actions of others. Someone who is taken advantage of. You feel sorry for yourself. Target of unwanted abuse or harassment. Someone who has been abused and harassed. Someone believing things happen to them instead of doing things. That's what that says. Both a perspective and also reality for some. All right, looks like the popcorn has stopped. So a victim is someone who has been harmed by another person's or experience. And I'm wondering if anybody today has a story of being a victim that they'd like to share with the group. If so, just go ahead and unmute yourself and jump in. Anybody? All right. Well, if nobody's going to jump in, I'll continue to tell my story.
I'll volunteer.
All right, go ahead. Great, Joanne. Thanks.
Hi, no problem. So early in my career, I worked on a desk with a team of all men. It was on a financial futures desk, and I would constantly be the person left out. And it was back in the day when it was okay for people to look at pornography on their computers, which they did, and there was just a lot of bad language going on, and more like a locker room as opposed to a professional environment. And it happened because, and that was basically an ongoing situation. And it was like that because that was the culture of the company, and it made me feel terrible. I mean, I was able to do my job for the most part, but every day was a struggle in that atmosphere.
Mm-hmm. Got it. And how did it make you feel?
Really bad. I guess I felt like a victim. So when I felt like that, I tried harder. It made me work harder. So I had to prove that I could work in that environment, often independently when I couldn't get help from the team. And I enlisted other people's help outside of the desk so that I could learn more about how better to fit in. Although I didn't swear and I didn't have pornography on my computer, so I never did that.
Okay. Yeah, so it actually sounds like, yeah, you were a victim, but you also kind of incorporated this sense of like, well, if I can't figure out here, I'm gonna go somewhere else and get the support.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it it was a question of getting help. I mean, I know in my experience with speaking with other women who have gone through the same thing, you have to ask for help. You can't do it by yourself. And particularly if you're the one woman on a desk or team, or you're feeling that harassment.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have to be honest with you, Joanne. It doesn't really sound like you were a victim. You don't sound like a victim. So, you know, an example of when I think of victim, and the reason you're going to see why this is important in a moment, but the reason, so victim, I think, like, if I think about like the story I told earlier about the career traumas, kind of like, well, was in this job and nobody was looking out for me, and you know, they just sent me to these dangerous places and I didn't have any support and all my colleagues hated me, and it was like I take no responsibility whatsoever for what happened to me. And that's kind of like this idea of like embodying the victim.
I see.
But thank you. I mean, thank you for the good news is, and you know, cheating a little bit here because you've been through the mental fitness boot camp, and so you've worked on this. But you know, we are cheating a little bit here. But thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah, and it was different when I was going through it. I wouldn't have had that perspective initially. So
got it. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So what I'd like to do now is we're going to go into breakout rooms. And what the first thing that you'll do once you get in the room and is decide who is partner A and decide who is partner B. If for some reason you are in a breakout room by yourself, journal. You're going to be both partner A and B, and just journal. And I apologize in advance if that happens. It has to do with the number of people we have on the call. So partner A, if you are partner A, you're going to, and you might want to take a screenshot of this slide so you know what you're doing. But you're going to tell your victim story. And remember, we're not talking about unresolved trauma here. But you're going to tell your victim story from a victim point of view. So it must be your story. It must be a true story. You'll have 2 minutes to tell your story. And your job is to convince your partner 100% that you are absolutely the victim in this scenario, in this story. Partner B, your job is to decide, are you convinced that partner A is a victim? And keep a poker face. Don't tip your hand here. Just listen. You don't have to say anything. Just, you know, sit there and listen. And you know, you're really trying to discern, okay, am I convinced that partner A is a victim? So in other words, partner A, like, your job is to play the victim. This is your chance to really embody and feel and experience what it is like to be a victim. And a reminder, this is a judge-free zone. Keep your judges out of this. Don't judge anybody else. Don't judge yourself. Don't think that the other person is judging you. Like, judge-free zone. And also 100% confidentiality. This session is being recorded, as I mentioned, but your breakout sessions will not be recorded. Are not going to be available to anybody. All right, so reminder, you have 2 minutes. Partner A, you are going to try to win the Oscar Academy Award for telling your victim story. And your job is to convince your partner 100% that you are the victim. And partner B, your job is to decide if you are convinced by A's story. So keep a poker face. All right, I'm going to stop sharing and put y'all in breakout rooms. Before we do that, any questions? Anybody confused about what they're supposed to be doing?
I just joined, so I don't know if I missed too much. I'm sorry for being late. I had trouble getting in, so.
Oh, you did? Oh, I'm sorry. No worries. Yeah, so what we're going to do now is go into breakout rooms, and you're going to decide who is partner A and who is partner B. There'll be, hopefully be 2 people in your breakout room. And partner A is going to tell their story of something that happened in their career where they were the victim. They were on the receiving end of this horrible thing that happened to them. And please no unworked through trauma. Don't bring something you've never talked about before that's traumatic to you. And then partner B's job is to discern whether partner A is really convincing them that they're a victim. So the idea is to embody the victim, like this is your chance to be a victim. Make sense?
Yep. Thank you.
All right. All right. We're back. So partner A, give me a thumbs up if you were convinced 100% that partner B was a victim.
I thought I was.
Yeah. And who was like maybe not so convinced? Everybody was convinced? Good job. Good acting, guys. All right, let me share my screen again. So we're going to switch gears and talk about what it means to be accountable. And so, yeah, so what does it mean to be accountable? Again, go into, let's get this right screen up here. Go into menti.com and just type in a few words. What does it mean? What does it mean to be accountable? Take responsibility, follow through every time. Own up for your actions. Take responsibility and ownership of your role without judgment. To be held responsible for doing what you say you will do. Responsible for your own actions and situation. Take responsibility. So a lot of taking responsibility. Yeah. So to be accountable really just means to account for your part in it. And it's not the same as saying that you condone or we condone, agree, or okay with what happened. We are simply accounting for our part in it. So let's take a car crash, for example. Now, you're driving through an intersection and boom, you get hit. Now, from a victim point of view, you could say, like, I was just minding my own business and that idiot driver came through and hit me. And now I've got like all this like damage to my car and my neck hurts. And, you know, and you just go on and on with the story. But to be accountable, you can just say, without placing fault, oh, well, you know, I was driving a new route that day. And so maybe like, because I wasn't familiar with the route, I wasn't paying as close of attention to the intersection. You know, today I decided to drive my car and instead of taking the bus. Maybe, you know, I was trying to find the perfect podcast to listen to, or I was turning off something I didn't want to listen to. And so I missed the fact that somebody ran the red light. So the idea with being accountable, again, is to take the fault out of it, to take the blame out of it. This isn't about putting blame. And it's just accounting, taking a note of what happened and what your part was in that. Does that make sense? Yeah. So another question, could the other driver also be accountable? Yes, right? If two cars have a car crash, can both drivers be accountable? So again, thinking about how you're not taking fault, you're not putting fault anywhere, you're not putting blame anywhere. It's not about fault and blame, it's just looking at what happened. Any questions on that? Okay. So what we're going to do now is we are going to go back into breakout rooms, and this time you get to tell your same story. You get to tell your accountable story. So you're going to use the same story, and this time partner A is going to tell the same story with an accountable storyline. And partner B, same thing, you're going to decide if your partner told an accountable story. Make sense? Give me a thumbs up if that makes sense. More or less. Ian, what's not quite?
Can I ask you a question, Kristen?
Yes, sure.
Can we modify the story a bit? I mean, one is the perspective narrative we use, but the events of it.
Sure.
Or we just, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, as long as the story is true and it's your story, you can modify it. An example of telling an accountable story might be, you know, I was telling this story, my victim story was that I was in this job where everybody hated me and they don't want to listen to anything I said, you know, and the accountable story may be like, well, you know, I took this job and I realized when I took it that I didn't quite have the qualifications, and, you know, instead of, you know, asking more questions, I went in with just, you know, I had all the answers. So that would be the shift from victim to accountable. Ian, did you still have a question, or you?
No, I needed an example. And
You need an example,
Thank
yeah.
you so much.
Thank you for prompting me on that one, because I forgot. Okay, so again, you've got, actually you got 3 minutes. And that will begin once you're in the breakout room, I think. I don't know how these things, yeah. Again, so partner B, you are going to decide whether the story that your partner is telling you is an accountable story. All right. Looks like we're back. So thumbs up if you believe that your partner was accountable. I got some thumbs up there. Some, like Kim's going kind of like, not sure. Is there anybody who did not believe that their partner was accountable? I don't see anybody. Okay. All right, guys, you know what's happening now. We're going back into breakout rooms, and it is partner B's turn to tell their stories, their accountable stories. Okay, here we go. Anybody who's like this? Yeah. Thumbs down, Jana. I can't tell you. I can't tell what you're saying. Thumbs down. All right.
Not thumbs down. I think we all know what's happening sometimes, and we don't take care of ourselves.
Got it. Got it. Okay. All right. So,
Can I say one thing about that? Like, and it's not just about my scenario, it's when I hear somebody else's.
Mhm.
Being aware and doing that hindsight could have played that different, or when I look back, it's like the people who are like, I knew when I was going down the aisle, I should have said no. Like, you know, I mean, like, I get that, but it's still a bit hard to let go when that doesn't make it, that doesn't give permission for somebody else to behave really badly, and for that to just be like, I mean, I understand acknowledging how you left a door open to it, you know what I mean? But that's, you know.
yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. And
Clearly.
again, yeah, no, I totally understand what you're saying. And again, this isn't about, Because it really isn't, honestly, it's really not about the other person. It's about you. And we're going to dig into what that means now. So if you just hold that thought for a couple of minutes. So if you could, we're going to dig into what the experience of telling your victim story. So in three words, how would you describe your experiences of victim? And go ahead and put that in menti.com. Depressed, frightened, helpless. Difficult to relive. Angry. Somebody's cursing. Damaged. A bit of shame. Frustrated. Torn. Loss of trust.
Kirsten, in the chat, someone shared anxiety and stress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So would you say these are more negative emotions or more positive emotions? Kind of a rhetorical question, right? So now I want you to look at the experience of telling your accountable story. How would you describe your experience of accountable in 3 words? Peaceful, powerful, strong, pride, expected, aware. Wait, who put expected, if you don't mind? Like, what do you mean by expected?
What I mean by expected is because the environment and the story, the environment in which the story that I told for non-victim took place was in a nightclub. So I think I had my antennas up to resist being targeted.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I mean by awareness. I think when we're going to work, we don't have our antennas up forward, so we're taken off guard by it, and that creates its own sense of shame and hurt. So,
Got it. Okay.
so we didn't see it coming.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Anybody else want to say anything about the word, one of the words they put up here? No.
I think I put forgiveness of myself,
Yeah.
And I think it's more of, I've got to get over this, that I saw it coming. I'm a strong person, and if I could forgive myself, I can get over this.
Mm-hmm. Got it. So forgiveness. Yeah, forgiveness is big, right? So do these all feel like more positive emotions? Everybody agree on that? Thumbs up. Yeah. So can you get the sense, it's probably obvious what I'm trying to drive home here, is the feeling that we get when we tell a victim story, or when we look at a story in our life from a victim point of view versus an accountable point of view. It sort of shifts the energy. And the reality is that each is content for context. And the question becomes, which context is the one you want for your life and career? And just to refresh our memories, context is the circumstances that form the setting for an event, statement, or idea, and in terms of which it can be fully understood and assessed. So what is the context for the career and life you say you want? Personally, I choose accountable, because this is the career and life that I want. And to be honest with you, it feels really good. It feels much better than going around being a victim and living in the victim perspective. And trust me, I've been there. I lived that perspective for a large part of my life. And is it true that you are accountable for everything you want in your life? Is that true? No, it's not. It's a trick question. Neither victim nor accountable is true. They are both a perspective. Think about the car crash. One person walks away from the car crash and says, ah, the idiot, he hit me and he did this to me and blah, blah, blah. And the other person says, wow, like I probably shouldn't have been looking at my phone. Our choice is what makes us powerful. Neither perspective is true. It's about choice. Okay, so now what? We're nearing the end of our time today. So what does all this have to do with healing career trauma? It's about mental fitness. So what you've experienced in this workshop is what we do in the mental fitness boot camp. We work on lowering the negative voices, lowering our saboteurs, and increasing our positive voices and our sage voice. So just a little plug for the mental fitness here. So I have a couple of sessions. I have a session starting next week and also one in the beginning of January. You have a chance to get $100 off by putting the discount code mental100. And that's good until the end of the week, until Friday. And Ellen's going to put that in the chat box. So what we do in the mental fitness boot camp, which I told you, is look at the saboteur perspective versus the sage perspective. And guess what? Saboteurs are all about negative emotions. They love negative emotions, stress, anxiety. That's what they feed on. They're good at telling us that we're not good enough. They're good at keeping us safe. And they like to blame other people and situations. And guess what? The victim is one of the nine accomplice, not accomplish, I have a typo here, saboteurs. And you can learn more about that. And actually, in the follow-up email, I'm going to send you a link where you can take the test to figure out what your top saboteurs are, which if nothing else, you should do that because it's really fascinating. And the sage is the one in you that handles challenges with a clear and calm mind and positive emotions.
Kirsten, can you remind us once again what the code is for the $100 off? Fitness 100?
Mental 100.
Mental 100. Yes. My apologies.
Mental. No worries. So, and your sage is accountable and uses its 5 powers to move forward from a career trauma. And you would learn this in the boot camp, something we dig into deeply. And there's a few people that have been through the boot camp on this call. So if we have time, I'll let them unmute themselves and tell them their experience. But the sage powers of empathy, explore, innovate, navigate, and activate. So just to give you a little sample here, I'm going to give you a chance to practice your sage power of empathy. So thinking about your career trauma, where could you have empathy for yourself? And you could think about it like this. If your friend went through the same thing that you went through, what would you tell your friend? Talk to yourself like you would talk to a friend. And again, menti.com, okay, you can type that in there. Waiting for the popcorn to start. Remember my skills. This is only a moment in time that will pass. No one prepared you for this. With experience, you learn to deal with tough situations and people. Don't blame yourself. Forgive myself and take the learnings. Find a place that values you. Consider the context of the time and the losses you were already dealing with. Sorry, I'm having trouble reading because it's really small on my screen. Do you agree with the advice you've been given? Should you get a second opinion? Yeah. So I see, I definitely see empathy here, but I also see some of the other sage powers like curiosity, explore, you know, should I get another opinion? You know, what was really going on in me at this point that made me make that decision? So in your career trauma, where could you have empathy for someone else?
Kirsten, can you give us an example? We have some people giving
Mm-hmm.
some question marks here in the chat.
So empathy for someone else? Is that what you mean, Ellen?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, here they are. So they're doing the best that they can. They might not know the effect on me. Maybe they're having a really bad day. I think about the idea of being somebody cutting you off in traffic, right? You know, maybe they're just really got to get somewhere in a hurry. They're having a bad day and or their mom is sick or something. A friend going through a nasty divorce. Yeah. The understanding of where that person is coming from. They have a different and valid perspective, even if I don't agree with it. New managers weren't aware of the company's ethics. Yeah. So instead of saying, oh, that person is an idiot, which would be a sage judge perspective, you could say, well, you know, maybe that guy's just having a really bad day. Or yeah, maybe they just didn't know. So that's it, guys. Thank you. I hope this was valuable. While we're taking questions, and I can stay for as long as you would like. I'd love if you could just, you know, rate the workshop. Let me know if you got value out of it. I will leave that up there while I take questions. So does anybody have questions or comments or want to give me a good recipe?
I have a confession. I got on because I saw the ad and I wasn't sure that I could finagle my way to get here, but I really got on because I said, okay, I'll just get the book, and then I couldn't figure out how to get the book. Is there a link for the book? Because I couldn't find it on Amazon.
Which book is that? The Positive Intelligence book?
The one that was advertised. There's a different one that was advertised with this. It's called, oh, I can't find it now. So where are all your books? How about that?
Okay, I'm not exactly sure what you're talking about, but
I think it was Positive Intelligence. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Positive Intelligence you can find on Amazon. Yeah.
And where are the others?
I'm not sure which others you're referring to. And my book you can get, which is called Next Act Give Back, you can get also on Amazon. Anybody else have questions?
I would love to hear a little bit more about the boot camp, Kristen, if you could share
Yeah,
that.
Yeah, sure. So the boot camp is a 6-week technology and small group program. So part of the program takes place through an app on your phone. And the program is designed to help you switch from that saboteur, judgy, victim perspective. There's a bunch of different saboteurs. And by the way, your top saboteur may be nowhere near victim. It may be something else. But it teaches you to change the way your brain operates and how it interacts with those saboteurs to access your sage perspective. And again, your sage is kind of like the knowing, I like to say like your cheerleader, the person inside of you that knows basically that you're amazing, and that it gives you tools for how to do that. So technically how it works is every day you'll do 10 minutes total of exercises on your phone. They're broken up in 2-minute sessions. So it's designed for really busy people. You'll listen to an hour-long video on Saturday or Sunday, or watch or listen to it. And then you'll participate in an hour-long pod call, which I believe, I forget what time the pod calls are, but I think they're either on Monday or Tuesday. And those pods are small groups, usually somewhere between 3 to 7 people. It depends on how many people are signed up. And with that said, I'd love to invite anybody who's gone through the program to unmute themselves and just talk about their experience, what you got out of it.
Well, I'm Mike Foose, and I just finished up with Kirsten last week. And an example that I would give that is transformative, it's a simple example, however, they use this repeatedly, is when you put your hand on a hot stove, you've gotten some really valuable information. If you're really smart, however, you take your hand off right away. But you see with the saboteurs that we tend to keep our hand on the stove and keep beating ourselves up time and time again, and that's really not very productive. And so you look at situations like that, and then you see that there is a way to get your hand off the stove and become much more comfortable with who you are and where you're going. So that's just a quick example that I found very useful.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, hand on the hot stove is very important in the boot camp. We use it a lot. Yeah.
I can share a little bit too. Okay, just making sure I was unmuted.
You are, we hear you.
I finished the boot camp a couple of weeks ago with Kirsten, and you know, I've had a lot of years in practicing being a victim and a pleaser, which were my personal top 2 saboteurs when I did the evaluation. And I can say that just, you know, during the 6 weeks, I got so many tangible tools that I could use. Because for me, a lot of times it was, you know, we say you can talk the talk, but do you walk the walk? So prior to the boot camp, I probably could have explained to you, well, yeah, I tend to feel sorry for myself, or I really want to make everybody happy. But I really didn't, so I could talk about it and I was aware of it, but I really didn't have many tools that I was actively using to make it stop. And that was the part of the boot camp that I really enjoyed, was that, you know, through the app and the, you know, few minutes of exercises at different times of the day, and then watching the video once a week and having, you know, open discussions with the, you know, 6 or 7 people that were in my pod really gave me the opportunity to practice some skills that I'm still using all the time.
Thank you for that. Thank you both.
All right, guys, we are at time. Please feel free to reach out to me. you can find me on my website. You can also just email me directly at kirsten@kirstenbunch.com, or find me on LinkedIn if you have any questions about the boot camp or what we talked about today, or coaching, or whatever. Please reach out. And with that, I want to thank you all for showing up and participating so boldly. And I know it was quick. We went through a lot, but I do hope you got a lot out of it. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Kirsten.
You're welcome. Bye, everyone.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
all.